The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
I'm afraid of losing, not afraid of losing you, 'cause I don't think of you like a thing of mine that I can just up and lose. I'm afraid of losing everything to you. My heart, my pride, a wrecking inside, nothing on this jukebox except the blues. Baby, if you go, it's over for good. And I'm
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 28, and our guest is Sarah Shook, singer, songwriter, guitar player, band leader, and just all-around badass. Pretty much any press you read about Sarah will use that adjective badass to describe her, and it's certainly appropriate. But what immediately struck me about her was first her intelligence, then her warmth of spirit, her kindness, and the sweetness that she carries with her. Don't misunderstand. She was drinking whiskey neat and smoking cigarettes during our conversation, and all that stuff about her being such a badass is very true. It's just that the complexity of the individual you hear on record is exactly who I sat down with outside Dirty Laundry in Orlando, Florida on a recent Thursday night before her band, Sarah Shook and the Disarmers, played Will's Pub right next door. Sarah greeted me like an old friend, and I was just so struck by so much about her. I came in enormously impressed by Sarah Shook the musician and left completely blown away by Sarah the person. You can follow all things Sarah at disarmers.com. Check out her band if they're coming your way. Buy all her records. Unbelievable person, unbelievable musician. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the true honors of my writing and podcasting career, my conversation with Sarah Shook.
Baby, if you go, it's over for good. And I'm as good as gone. No, it won't be long till the wrong song comes on at the right time. You're as good as gold. You're as good as gold. I'm as good as
Yeah, that would be awesome. Just like a double whiskey neat.
Yeah.
So it's nice to just sit.
Oh, good.
Not in a van.
Yeah. Just chill in the
Yes.
outdoors.
Yep,
We can just talk about life.
exactly.
Relax. Cool. I think we're all good whenever you want to
All right.
pick that thing up. I'm just going to double check that we're sounding good. I brought you stickers too.
Thank you so much.
My
Check,
pleasure.
check. Check 1, 2.
You sound glorious.
Awesome.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much. This is a special thrill because we have these sort of, with the Marinade, we sort of have these sort of our artists, you know? I feel like there are certain artists that we talk about with our on social media, and like my fans do, and we talk about them together. And there are people like Austin Lucas. There are people like Micah Schnabel, who's been on the show a couple of times, and Austin's been on the show, and you are one of them. So this is like a huge thrill for me to get to talk to you. So thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And on top of that, Years was one of my favorites of 2018.
Thank you.
I mean, absolutely fantastic. And I want to kind of the show is really about creative process, and so I kind of want to talk about process more generally, and then see where it goes, and
Okay.
get more specific about certain things. But I just wonder with you, how you just mentioned that it was a bear getting over here from Tampa. Like, how do you have time to sit and write? Like, it just seems like you have so much going on.
It's really, really difficult, especially when we're on tour, to write a song, because typically I have to be alone. And there's not a whole lot of alone time. Constantly surrounded by 5 other dudes.
Yeah.
But I'm really working on that, because I feel like the need is there, and if I'm going to continue writing songs, I can't just write at home, because I'm home so rarely. And when I am home, I'm focused on my son and other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm playing around with like a couple nights this tour. I would bring my guitar into the hotel room, and PD walks a lot, so he'll just go out for a long walk. So just working on stuff then. But the way that I used to write is just really not possible very much anymore.
What have you found that transition to be difficult, or is that are you adjusting to it well enough, or is it just
I think so. And I'm trying other kind of weird things too. I wrote a couple days back now, I wrote a little under 1,500 word short story in the van.
Dope.
Just as an exercise to do something different and keep writing, because I love writing.
Yeah.
I love it. Writing a song to me is one of the most satisfying feelings in the world, because when it's done and I know it's done, it's just yes. And then the next best thing, actually maybe the best thing, is taking it to my band and then watching what those dudes do with it, because it's magic.
Well, you've got a shit hot band.
Yeah. And the first practice that we had for the next album, we ran through 2 new songs, and I got home from that practice and just I couldn't even get out of my car when I parked at my house. I just sat in my car and cried for half an hour.
Wow.
Because it was so amazing.
Wow.
It was just, I write these songs from very personal experiences,
Right.
and it's just me and my guitar, and then I bring it to the band, and it's just all of those emotions are amplified, but it's in this beautiful, sad way. It's just so powerful and humbling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is the new stuff, I feel like, it seems like from a fan's perspective that things have just shot up so quickly for y'all. You've been hustling for a handful of years really, really hard, but it's just kind of keep another level and another level and another level.
Yeah.
Has that impacted this new record? Is it going to sound similar to the last one?
It's hard to say, because I think the songs will still very much have the same feel. And I think there are definitely some surprises in store as well. But in general, the way that I'm feeling about the way it's shaping up is really positive. I think it's going to be really cool. And one of the things that I love about our fans is that, they're not just country fans. They listen to all kinds of stuff like I do. And so I think for them, it's if it ends up being more rock and roll or more garage or whatever, I think people just like the message of the music, and that's what resonates, is the lyrics, because all of these things that make us feel so separated and isolated, going through breakups, losing a job, things like that, those are the things that make us together,
right? And
we have to figure out the key to you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the magic of a really good songwriter. That's the magic of your songs, is that they tap into that universal understanding and condition. We all go through all of that same shit on different levels and in different ways.
Absolutely.
And the idea that that's the magic of a song, the idea that you can put that into a way, articulate it so that somebody in Wisconsin can hear it in the same way that somebody in Barcelona can hear it.
And my hope with that too is I want people to, and I get this a lot in messages from folks, it's just your music helps me feel less alone. And it's that's because to me, your experiences are every bit as valid as my experiences,
right.
And I don't have a monopoly on heartache.
Yeah.
we all go through this
Yeah.
stuff. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah. I had a situation recently. It reminds me of something recently where I was at a bar and I was having a beer with somebody that I know. We're not friends. We're kind of bar buddies.
Yeah.
You know those
Oh,
folks,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I got some of those.
And he asked me about the worst day of my life, and it took me a second because, like, to me, there wasn't one worst day. I've had ups and downs like anybody else in different ways, and so I had to really think through. And the story I told was about losing a friend when I was pretty young, and he was 19 and I was like 21 at the time. And I who knows how I articulated that story, but that was the thing that stuck with me and hit me so hard. And he looks at me and he goes, "That was the worst day of your fucking life?" And it made me feel so small for that second.
That's terrible.
Isn't
Oh
that
my
awful?
God, that's terrible. It's like, well, gee, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you.
And I was like, well, shit, I'm sorry that that was my reality, and that's the first thing that I thought of.
Right.
But I didn't say that to get empathy, but I appreciate your empathy. But I said it to kind of connect to what you were saying about the fact that we all have our shit.
Yeah.
And one person's isn't necessarily more valid than another or more difficult than another. you
Right.
know?
But we're it's like so ingrained in us because our worlds are so small. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, I live a very unnatural life. Like,
Yeah.
being all over the country and all over the world all the time in a van or a plane or whatever
Right.
is, like, not a natural way to live.
Right.
And one of the things that, especially this past tour, has stood out to me, and I went on a Twitter rant about it, but it's just like, I see so many people in a day, like in one day of touring, between gas station stops and meeting people at the venue and talking to fans after shows. Like, I see so many people, and just like, it kills me that, especially as Americans, but like, it's the world over. It's just like, people work their lives away because they have to work to support themselves, to live. And like, the government doesn't give a shit about them.
Mm-hmm.
They honestly don't give a shit. And especially like corporations and the people at the top of corporations, like, they don't give a shit about, Joe down at the gas station who always gets a hot dog at noon every day for his lunch. You know what I mean? They don't care. And to me, it's like, I care about Joe. Like, Joe fucking matters.
Well, and that comes through. That comes through in your songs, and that comes through in the connection that you have. Also, one of the things that I want to kind of touch on maybe later, because you've just given me so much that I want to discuss. But the connection that you clearly have with your fans, I should say, right? It's like when I watch one of your Instagram stories, I feel like you're talking to me genuinely.
I
right?
am.
And that and
sure.
that comes through in this conversation, and it comes through in your music too. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You clearly give a shit about Joe and his hot dog, and his Mountain Dew.
Yep.
And whatever that might be. Have you learned lessons about that balance? I mean, you are traveling all the time. You are a mother. You are a writer. You are, and then I'm sure you have whatever your personal things are as well that we don't necessarily see. Sarah, the private person.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that and maintain this career that's clearly you're keeping your shit together? Like, how do you
Mostly.
have you learned? What have you learned lessons about that balance?
I have, and it's a constant learning process. And like, referring back to what you were saying earlier, it changes so fast, and like, you just have to be so flexible and so willing to learn those lessons and like learn real quick, like fast on your feet constantly. And this is a very weird and oftentimes difficult job for me because I'm incredibly introverted by nature.
Oh, wow.
And when I was 21 and I booked my first show, I called my mom to tell her, and I thought she hung up on me because she just didn't say anything. I was like, "Are you there, Mom?" And she was like, "No way." She's like, "You're telling me you're going to get on a stage in front of people and sing by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm terrified." And she's like, "I bet you are." I mean, like, when I was a kid, I was so shy. My parents like almost took me to therapy because I would not speak to anyone outside my family, like, just very, very, very shy. And so it's part of the motivation for working past that, or figuring out how to kind of live with the fact that I'm naturally kind of shy, is what we were talking about earlier. It's just like that empathy, and it's like, it's fucking important to like talk about this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So I drink way more than I should, and I know that, and I need to quit smoking, and I need to start taking better care of myself. But for now, like, I mean, I run our social media accounts. It's like I have no time to exercise, you know, and it's just like I need to do that, you know.
Yeah.
You got to. Kevin brings his bike on tour,
Yeah.
and just like you've ridden with him,
I've
right?
ridden with him,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was one of the coolest interviews I've ever done. We rode bikes around Jacksonville. I showed him around. I used to live up in Jacksonville.
yeah.
So, and I cycle everywhere. I barely ever drive.
Yeah.
I drove here, but very rarely do I drive. And Kevin and I rode around, and I interviewed him, and we filmed it. It was pretty
That's
cool.
pretty rad.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. But that's his way to do it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and finding that outlet is too important. That self-care
Yeah.
is way too important because, of course, you're not able to give to everyone else if you're not being good for you and taking care of you.
Right.
You know, and then I don't know if you felt this, but I know for me, I also think I drank too much. And I took a little bit of a break at the beginning of the year.
Me too. 10 days, cold turkey, no smokes, no alcohol.
And
10 days.
How'd
and
it feel?
Well, after day 4, it felt great.
Yep.
And then we went on tour. It was like, oh well. Yep. So I think it's good to like have that self-awareness where it's just like, okay, well, this is something we got to work on. Shook.
Yeah. But it's crazy, like when you have that, when you're not drinking and you're not doing those negative things, it's like I find myself writing
Oh my God,
so much.
prolifically,
Yeah.
just like, and doing more and just like feeling good because you're accomplishing so much stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very good. It was a very good social experiment for me to just like get off the stuff for 10 days.
Did anything come up other than that recognition,
Oh yeah.
emotional stuff?
Oh yeah. Just like because that's the thing about drinking. That's the great lie of drinking is that it like it makes you feel good and it's, you know, it's easier to socialize and like it is those
Right.
things. But in a lot of ways, for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, it's in part it's to have a good time. That's the main motivation. But there's also like a lot of stuff in my past that it's just like I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to go through it.
Yes.
And yeah, by the time that my body started like being okay with the fact that like I wasn't drinking or smoking,
Right.
and then like more mental clarity came, it was just like an onslaught. I was having like all kinds of like memories and just like and it's just like, but instead of feeling intimidated by that, like I felt empowered to just like face it and go through it.
Yep.
And just like let yourself grieve for the sad things that happened because that's so important. And it's just like you know, start drinking every night and you like put you take away the opportunity to better yourself mentally and psychologically, which is important to me. I'm not religious by any means. I'm actually pretty anti-religion in general. But I do think that there's a spirituality to people. There's something there that we have to nurture.
Right. And when you have that clarity of mind, it does seem like, and to get a little spiritual, it does seem like your soul is unblocked in some ways. I feel like I can give so much more to people when I'm not blocking myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I mean, this job is like the exact opposite of what I wanted in terms of, I love making music. I love writing songs. And I'm certainly not complaining because I know there are a lot of people that work really hard to do this and they never get the chance. And I never take that for granted. But it's very, very, very hard for me, especially when people treat me like a celebrity. Like it just triggers me. I can't. It's just like I'm a person just like you, and like that's the most important thing about my music is like the humanness of it.
Yep.
And celebrity culture is just absolutely dehumanizing, and you just become viewed as like a thing or a commodity or like whatever, and it's navigating that mentally is real tricky.
I bet.
Yeah.
Because the balance of like the filter through which we're able now to communicate with people with social media, but also the fact that we can curate that, and you know, you don't seem to try to curate it from a consumer's perspective. It doesn't seem like you try to curate too hard. Like you seem to be very, very genuine about it, but at the same time, you're on tour doing cool shit. You know? So
Exactly.
So like even though that's your genuine nature, you're doing rock star shit.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it may be you know, there is a curated kind of feel to it, and that lens someone who has never met you,
Yeah.
it's hard for them to see anything other than that until
Right.
maybe they get a chance.
Right.
To, you know.
Very much so. And there are certainly times that I'd navigate that better than others. And there are times that, most of the time I just try to extricate myself from the situation, and other times I'll just be like, hey, have a conversation with me. Like, I'm a real person. I'm not just like a person that stands on that stage and sings songs at your face. Like, I'm me, so it's weird. It's a very, there's just a lot of weird components to this work.
Do you have mentors that have helped you through some of that stuff, like understanding how to navigate those challenges as a singer and especially as an introverted front person?
I mean, I think that, yeah, I don't know. Yes and no. And I'm pretty, like, unorthodox in my methods, I think, and that applies to, like, everything in my life. But I don't know. I see people that, like, kind of start out where we did and blow up as quickly as we did, and are continuing. I mean, like, it's crazy. I worked on our Instagram account and focused on that for so long because to me that's like how I could actually interact with people the most. I can't tell you how many messages like I send and receive just from people I don't even know.
That's awesome.
From all over the world in one day.
Right.
And I want to be that accessible because I think it's important. And you weed out the crazies, you block them and say, I, wish you the best and hope you get the help you need. And, beyond my way.
Right.
But I try to be very accessible, and as long as I'm able to do that, I think that's really important.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it makes people feel like they're a part of the music, It's not just music at you. It's like it's part of you.
Well, you're right, and it makes a difference, right? That investment that you have. There's a lot of really great songwriters out there.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate to live in a world where we can access a lot of really great music at our fingertips really quickly.
Yes.
With that comes the challenge of what the hell am I going to listen to? And that's one of the things I love about the show is that we have been able to turn a lot of people onto artists that I appreciate. Like I don't have anybody on the show who I don't admire in some way.
Right.
And so it's really cool that then I'm able to introduce people to those, and then I get these messages that from people that say like, "Oh man, my new favorite artist is such and such."
Yeah, that's gotta be so satisfying.
It's so cool. Yeah. We have this amazing fan Zach who has on his truck. He's up in Minnesota. He's got a Marinade sticker and he's got a Sarah Shook sticker.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Right? So he may have more now, but he sent me a picture of that.
Heck yeah. Hey, Zach.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to circle back to the short story if we can.
Yeah.
Is that so fiction?
Fiction
specifically?
Yes.
And is that a discipline that you've been working on for a while, or is this a new?
Brand
idea?
new. I was just my boyfriend gave me he's so sweet. I told him kind of early in the fall last year that I was trying to get into reading again. There's another thing that like is so important and I just don't have time for.
Yep.
And he's like, I know exactly what you need to read, and I'm going to buy you a book for Christmas. And he got me this book that's a collection of short stories. The author's name is Brees DJ Pancake. He's from rural West Virginia.
Okay.
And it's very violent at times. And like I made a post about it on my personal page, and I like posted like trigger warning, like there's some stuff in here. But it's so honest and it's so real in the way that he just paints a landscape and drops these characters into it that are, to me, especially growing up super poor, so relatable. And it was so inspiring. And the author committed suicide when he was 26, I believe.
Oh man.
And I mean, my speculation was that I felt like maybe he had just like needs he wasn't having met in some way. And I got inspired. I was just like, man, I should write a short story about a young lesbian in West Virginia who like gets her first kiss in a bathroom when she's out hanging out with friends. And like, because it's so important that those things are presented in this way that's like, this is an innocent, beautiful thing.
Right.
And so many times the media just like absolutely demonizes members of the LGBTQ community, and people fall for it. And I mean, on one hand, does that make me mad that the media does that? Yes, and it makes me mad that people fall for it, but they still don't know better. And so, like, this is, like, constant life philosophy is just, like, everybody is doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know. And some people are better about, like, teaching themselves about stuff like this than others are. But, like, we can't just write off people that don't understand because they didn't get a fair shake either because they were misinformed and misled. And so there has to be some element of compassion and, like, a genuine, earnest desire to be like, hey, it's actually not like that. It's like this. Check it out, you know?
I'm so glad you said that, and you said it the way you did, because there's this temptation, and I fall for it all the time, to be like, every one of you Trump voting motherfuckers is a bigot, you fucking assholes.
Oh, I know.
You fucking bigots.
I know.
But a lot of them aren't in their own minds. A lot of them are made that vote for a different reason.
Yeah.
And they did it for for what they thought was going to be their economic benefit or whatever it was, and they didn't think like, well, let's expel all the brown people, you know? Like, but in my mind, every time I think about it, especially that media point, every time I see a headline,
I know,
you know, and how guilty are we?
I stopped reading the news years ago. I was like, as long as I'm continuing to do behind the scenes activism stuff, because it's like, and this is one of my, like, there was some article that came out on this tour that was a show preview that referred to me as a liberal, and it really pissed me off because I'm a fucking anarchist. And I was just, and like, and no disrespect, but it's like I'm constantly making the argument that both sides are just as guilty of fear-mongering and, like, anger and pointing fingers. And it's just, like, the main issue that I see with liberals is just, like, they'll post something progressive on social media and, like, pat themselves on the back and go about their day. And it's like, well, you ain't wrong, but what are you doing to fix it?
Right.
Like, where's the action? You know, that's what needs to happen, is, like, we need to stop fucking being self-congratulatory dweebs and just, like, do the work, like, boots on the ground work.
And that a lot of people, and that's another thing that's really complicated, is that a lot of people just don't know what that should look like, which isn't an excuse. Fucking figure it out, right? Figure out how to get your boots on the ground.
Right.
But everybody's activism is different.
Yeah.
You know, and that being said, that's not a cop out. That just means use your skills and your voice, whatever that is.
Right.
In order to advocate for a voice to the voiceless, if you can.
Exactly.
Actually lending your time if you can. Lending an ear if you can. Whatever that looks like for
and
everybody.
having time, I mean, in this day and age, in this society, is a privilege because most Americans are out here working 9-to-5 jobs and, like, too tired to, like, do anything when they get home because they're it's not, you know, it's this. I can't imagine that this is the way that most of us live our lives is, like, what was meant for us. Not that I believe in destiny, but it's just, like, human beings are so full of potential and just magic in our own ways. And we're just oppressed and we're kept down and we're kept quiet. And, like, we only get the information the media wants us to get. And, you know, buy this, you know, go to this place. Like, it's just, I want to see human beings empowered. That is, like, everything to me. Like, having confidence in yourself enough to be like, you know what, I'm gonna take control of my life and I'm gonna do this. And, like, I overthink everything, man. I apologize, but yeah.
You don't need that's what you clearly haven't listened to the show. That's what we do.
Oh, well, we're in good company then, buddy.
Every fucking episode of the show is bad in some in some way. Yeah, some shade of what you just said.
Yes.
So yeah, you're fitting right in, ma'am.
I've never been told that before.
This fiction thing, like, most of the writing that I've done has been music journalism. You know, that's the stuff that I've been comfortable putting out there because I feel like I can do it, and that's like my comfort zone. You know,
right?
I feel comfortable there. And then when somebody challenged me a couple years ago. To a guy who wrote screenplays. He challenged me to write fiction, and I was basically like, no fucking way, dude. Like, I can't do that. I can't go there. That is too hard. That is putting myself out there way too much. Because in my mind, that felt way more personal than me telling a story about a show or writing about a record that hit me.
Right.
And then I started doing it.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm just saying now I put it out there.
That's
And
awesome.
now I feel comfortable putting it out there.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you're feeling, like the story that you wrote or stories that you're working on. You think that's going to be something you're going to put out there?
I mean, the story I wrote, I knew was very much a rough draft
Yeah.
and needs work and revision. But I mean, I literally wrote it and was so excited about it. I emailed somebody at Vice and somebody at BuzzFeed to see if they would publish it.
Oh, cool.
Because it's important. It's
Yeah.
like to like get this kind of like art is just so powerful. It's
Mhm.
such a powerful medium, and to me, it's like possibly the only chance that we really have to combat like the fucking media conglomerates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we the people, like actually we the people out here like doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you are doing it. I mean, there's your activism, and do you have other things, other outlets that you use in terms of being able to make that difference besides your music? Because in my mind, your music would be plenty, you know.
Right.
But
Right. So some years ago, I think 3 years ago now, my friend Erica Libero and I were activism partners. We like literally joined forces, and we're like, we want to change some shit in this town.
Yeah.
Like, and so we did some very like boots on the ground type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Disarmers started blowing up and we started hitting the road like 130, 140 days a year, I talked to her about it. And I was just like, dude, I don't have time. And I mean, I went through like probably a 2-day just like depression, just realizing that I was not going to be able to commit the amount of time to that as I was.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, dude, what you're doing is activism.
There you go.
You're a woman fronting an outlaw country band that's having success. Like you're doing it. You're so like do that because that's equally important.
Well, yeah, that itself, the songs that you write, the fact that the way you use pronouns in your songs, everything about it, you know, it is very, there it is. There's the difference that you can make, and that's huge.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's got to be fun. And that's what so many people that are working really, really hard to affect change. And like, I respect their work and I respect what they're doing, but they forget that you have to make it fun and it has to be playful. And like every time I'm on stage and I sing a song about a woman, like it's like, heh.
Yeah.
You know? It's just like
yeah.
because it is gentle and it's not
Yeah.
it's not in your face like
Right.
angry hollering about stuff.
Right.
It's gentle and quiet and like an appeal to someone to think about something differently.
That's great, because so often it can get too serious, and then you alienate somebody
Exactly.
who may otherwise have been open and listening.
Exactly.
You know, I think about my father's generation. Like, if you're playful with that makes him stop and think. If you're not, then it becomes an us versus them kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah. When House Bill 2, the infamous bathroom bill,
Right.
passed in North Carolina, I happened to see some post my mom made about it on Facebook that was just so backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of like getting in her comments and like being crazy about it,
Mhm.
I sent her a private message and I was just like, Mom, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to send you some photos of some people and I want you to tell me what bathroom they belong in.
Whoa.
And so I sent her like 3 photos of trans women and I was like, what bathroom do they belong in? She's like, the women's room. I was like, yeah, Mom, they're women. They are.
Right,
like
right,
they
right,
are.
right,
And
right.
so I just it changed her. Like
Yeah.
she was just like, I see it. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And I was like, yeah, you gotta stop watching the news, man. Like
Right.
get around some real people.
Right. What are you got that book that you're reading now? What else are you consuming art-wise? Music, films, whatever.
I'm listening to a lot of I've been listening to the Black Angels for about 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And every damn album they have put out is just so good in its own way. It's unique, but it's still cohesive. And when we played Austin, I guess it was like a week or so ago, the drummer for the Black Angels sent me an Instagram message and she's like, I'm coming to your show tonight and bringing a friend. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what is this? And I met her after the show and she's like just a very down-to-earth human being. And
Right,
so of course we got along super well.
Yeah.
But that was just so cool and just somebody that like you admire their work so much. And
Yeah.
it was a really cool feeling.
That's funny because you were just talking about that. The fact that it's, you're a human.
Yes.
You did the same thing to her.
Yes, I know. I was like, oh my God. And it's funny because I turned our bassist, Aaron Oliva, onto the Black Angels. He plays them almost every time it's his turn to drive.
Yeah.
And so like he and I were just like giggling like some school kids. We were
That's
just
great.
like, oh my God, this is so great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that feeling when you meet somebody like that you've been listening to them for a long time, and
Yes.
and then they end up being cool.
Yes.
And they're almost, in fact, in my experience, every one of them's been super cool.
Because they get it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I can't think of meeting a hero that I've been like, that motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. That guy sucks.
Anything else? Anything else you're listening to or watching or whatever?
Yes. Let's see. So I consume music in a very weird way. I'm very obsessive.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Angels are actually kind of the exception to the way I do things, because usually I just find a song and I just obsess on it. There's just like, it has a quality to it that's like, it doesn't even matter what genre it is, but it has this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like this, and I'll listen to the same song like 30 times a day for days.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Angels was the first band that I was like, I want to hear everything they've ever done. Like I want to hear it all. But there is a band out of Chicago called Camp Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's CampDoggzz, all one word.
All right.
And when I was a bartender at this little venue, Dirty Dive Bar in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, called The Cave, I was bartending on the night they came through. And it was a weeknight. So weeknights at this place, it's so small. It's a 75 cap room, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a weeknight and there's not like a huge show, you're by yourself. So you're the door person, you're the sound tech, you're the bartender, you're the bouncer, like all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this quiet, sleepy little night in Chapel Hill, and Camp Dogs came through and played, and I was like, I want to know you people. And because one of the things that really drew them to me was before they even set foot on stage and started sound checking or playing anything, they sat at a table together, and I watched the way they interacted with each other, and I was like, this is how my band interacts with each other. We are like family, and like we look out for each other, and we tease each other, we make each other laugh, and like we esteem each other. We hold each other in high esteem.
Yeah.
And so then I heard them play, and I'd probably listened to their album, a couple hundred times, their first album, and they just released another album, I think mid to late 2018. And I think it's the second song on the album. They just do things in this really cool way. So their first album, the first song, the lead singer doesn't even sing on. Somebody else in the band sings on. So you got a male vocal on the first track, and then the whole rest of the album is Jess singing.
Wow.
And it's just like, that's so backwards to the way the industry would want you to do things.
Yeah.
And it's like a wink almost. It's like, no, we do things our way, And I respect that so much. And Camp Dogs has this song called Souvenir, and it's just great. It's just so good. And I've listened to it so many times, and then I'll take a break for like a week, and I'll be like, God, I gotta hear it again. I just gotta hear. It's so good. Like there's a quality to it. She has a very unique voice, and she is a master of nuance, and she knows when she needs to be loud and when she needs to be quiet, and like she has got that shit on lockdown.
Dope.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is really exciting. I can't wait to dig into that.
Yeah.
Especially from that.
You gotta tell me what you think when you
I
listen
will.
to it.
No, I
Yeah.
definitely will. I definitely will. That is so fun. Sarah, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you. Cheers.
Cheers.
I've been waiting round here for too long, hoping love will find a way, wishing you were good for me, and that time would surely prove me wrong. I've been asking nature for a sign.
Sarah Shook, y'all. Thank you so much, Sarah. You are an inspiration, and I'm so grateful for your time. Folks, the song that you heard at the beginning of the show is Good as Gold off of her record Years, and the one you're hearing now is the title track from that same album. The But I recommend that you go out and get all things Sarah Shook, and you can find that at disarmers.com. Sarah's also an excellent follow on Instagram at Sarah Shook's Disarmers. Speaking of social media, give us a follow if you haven't already. We're pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. Just search Marinade Podcast and you'll find us. Also, if you're interested, follow us on Patreon. Patreon's a place where you can connect a little bit more deeply with our Marinade community. And for just a few bucks, you can get exclusive updates about the show. Our Patreon only show, Jason's Journey, as well, where I open up about the moments that have shaped my creative life. The most recent one that I recorded is actually about the experience interviewing Sarah, so it's almost like an inside the episode kind of situation. And then also we have a cool live kind of episode that I'm going to be recording semi-regularly about these episodes coming up very soon. So I'll first announce that there, and I always release things to them ahead of time as much as possible. It's a cool community where you can connect a little bit deeper and get to know us a little bit better. So if you can swing it, we appreciate it. The free thing that I'd really love for all of you to do is just go onto your app and rate us. It means a lot to us, and it's a piece of cake for you. So if you like what we're doing, give us 5 stars over there. Really appreciate it. You can also head on over to marinadepodcast.com. You can buy a hat. You can now buy a shirt, because our shirts are going to be available coming up very, very soon, just tomorrow actually. We just got the kind of test pressing today, and I'm super stoked about that. So check us out at marinadepodcast.com, where you can also find website exclusive episodes that don't make sense as feature episodes, but are still amazing conversations nonetheless. If you can't get enough Marinade, there's always more. All right, y'all, it's time for what I'm getting down on, our regular segment where I share the music, the books, the articles, the films, whatever art has my attention or is inspiring me at the moment. I've been listening to Kevin Gordon's Gloryland, which was recommended to me by Amy McCarley, who I spoke with over the phone for a website exclusive episode on marinadepodcast.com. Wonderful conversation. Amy also just released an incredible record called Miko, and she recommended Kevin's music. She's right. I fucking dig Kevin Gordon. I'm also rediscovering Casey Anderson's Nowhere Nights. Casey's a good friend of the show and one of my favorite all-time songwriters. And he has a crowdfunding deal up on his Bandcamp where you can help with the recording of the sequel to Nowhere Nights. Hell, I'm tempted to start my own crowdfunding so I can get a piece of the songwriting lessons that he's offering as a perk. Those are the 2 things that I've been listening to a lot recently. I've also been reading Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology and really enjoying it. Gaiman's one of my all-time favorite storytellers, and the tales of the Norse gods are almost too good to be true when they're in such able hands. It's almost too much of a good thing. I can't put it down, and I love just that escape of mythological fantasy. Super, super fun. I was listening to a podcast I can recommend, and that's Disgraceland. It's these crazy stories, rock and roll stories, and it's really well done. The one I was listening to is the story of Gigi Allen. If you're not familiar with Gigi Allen, look that shit up. Just unbelievable. But it's a great, really cool podcast, Disgraceland. So I recommend that in that particular episode on Gigi Allen. And I haven't really been watching a whole lot new. Still pretty into True Detective. As always, I'm digging Pete Holmes' Crashing. And then his podcast as well, You Made It Weird. But I have been trying to take in as much live music as possible, and I had a wonderful night of live music and fellowship when I went to Hannah Harbor from episode 18 and our good friend, her album release party. Several Marinade guests and friends were in attendance, and the vibe was just incredible, and just few people command a room like Hannah Harbor. Her songs and her presence are infectious, so hopefully she gets to your town sometime soon. But until then, go ahead and check out her record Long Time Coming, which I've mentioned before and I can't say enough about. Thank you all so much for listening. Our next episode will be a little bit different. We're going to do some live recordings. We've got some really cool guests lined up for this weekend at the Rock and Robinson Festival here in Orlando. And then we'll return to regular programming just like this episode and so many others come March. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for your time, your support, your love, and your energy. Until next time, cheers, y'all.